Hey everyone, thanks for joining Learn to Play Games. My name is Lance, and today I'll look at a brand new game coming to Kickstarter called Impendium. This is the newest game from Dragon Egg Games. It is a 1 to 6 player game that takes roughly 15 minutes per player, and it has a number of different ways you can play it, including competitively, semi-competitively, and cooperatively. This game is also compatible with Dragon Egg Games' first successful Kickstarter, which was Nova Lux, and I'll have a link up in the top corner to a video showing how these two are compatible and how they work together. In this particular game, you are going to be rebuilding the galaxy one star at a time, trying to manage your resources that you'll use to build stars for the Federation, also being able to gain additional factions, defeating Harbingers of the Void, and a number of different things. In competitive mode, you're going to be doing all this to gain victory points, and the player that is able to reach a certain number of victory points first is going to be the winner of the game. So in this video, I'll show you the main features of the game and show you a sample turn to help you determine if this is one you want to back on Kickstarter. As always, if you find these videos helpful, if you like what I do, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing to my channel. It's one of the easiest ways you can support channels like mine so we can continue to grow and produce this content. If you want to stay updated on all my videos, also considering that bell so you get notifications anytime I release new stuff. So let's head to the table and we'll see what this one's all about. First, I want to start by looking at the players' boards themselves. So for those of you returning from Nova Lux, these are going to look very familiar. For those of you that are new, there are 5 different resources that players are going to manage throughout the game, which are water, artifacts, botanical oxygen, life forms, and hydrogen. Throughout the game, players are going to gain these resources and then spend them to carry out all kinds of different actions. Players are also going to have access to colonies that they're going to have to manage throughout the game as well to use to gain different resources, control stars, and fight off Harbingers. And I'll go into more detail about this a little bit later. Players are also going to have access to all kinds of different factions that are going to give them different types of bonuses throughout the game. For example, with this one, it is -2 life forms when doing Federation projects. We also have ones that are going to subtract or be able to substitute resources for other resources and giving us additional resources during each of our turns. And there's all kinds of different factions that again are going to give us all kinds of different benefits. In Impendium, the Federation is trying to rebuild the galaxy one star at a time, and the players are going to help in this by spending their resources to create these stars. Each star is going to have different requirements for resources to build it, and once built, the players will be able to place colonies on those stars that are going to get them all kinds of different resources at the beginning of each of their turns. These stars are broken down into the 5 different colors: green, yellow, red, purple, and blue. And as the players build stars and connect them to each other, they're going to create all kinds of different galaxies that I'll explain in a second. Throughout the game, the Federation is going to have 3-star projects going at all times. During player turns, they can help build these stars by spending resources at the bottom of the star for those requirements. When a player does that, they will place a colony on that star, and when the final colony is placed meeting the 3 requirements of that star, the star will be built by that player. At that point, all players that contributed towards the building of that star will receive victory points, and then that player will get to place that star next to one of the other stars that's already out there. If the player chooses to place a star next to another star of the same color, helping them to slowly build towards their galaxy, then you're also going to trigger the effects of the Harbingers of the Void, and these are going to be enemies of all players and will have different effects that will be carried out during their turn. These Harbingers are also going to have requirements in order for the players to defeat them, and they will also gain victory points for those. And Harbingers are going to have all kinds of different effects and will be worth all kinds of different amounts of victory points for the players. Now, as the players build stars of the same color, they're also working towards building galaxies. So when there are 3 stars of the same color, then the player that has the most colonies on those stars will receive a ruler of a galaxy card, and these are going to have permanent effects for that player, gaining additional victory points and resources for the rest of the game as long as they have these cards. And these will have all kinds of, again, different effects. There will also be a number of different ways you can play Impendium. There will be an artificial intelligence deck that will allow you to add AI-controlled opponents to your games, whether you're playing with multiplayer or solo mode. And then there's also going to be a couple of expansions that will be included, which are also compatible with Nova Lux: the Turmoil expansion and Loyalty expansion. Impendium is played over an undefined number of rounds. During each round, each player will get to take a turn, starting with the player that has the first player marker and proceeding clockwise around the table. During each player's turn, it is broken down into 3 phases that are carried out in order. The first phase in each player's turn is the resource gathering and victory point phase. During this phase, the player is going to receive resources from each star that they have a colony on and their Ark of Salvation is located in. The player is also going to gain any victory points from Ruler of the Galaxy cards that they currently have or any other effects to grant victory points at this point. Once the player is done with that, they'll move into the second phase of their round, which is going to be activating any Harbingers of the Void that are currently out on the table, resolving each one in order, carrying out any actions that are listed on their card. Once the player is done with that, then they'll move into the final phase of their turn, which is their action phase, which they get to carry out a number of different actions, performing moves, moving around the board, being able to attack other players or trade with other players, attacking Harbingers, building colonies, working on projects, star projects with the Federation, and a number of other actions. Once the player has completed this step, then they'll move into the next player's turn in clockwise order. At the end of each round, the players are going to carry out a final phase where the player that has the first player marker will pass it to the next player in order and reset any other factions or anything that they need to. And the final thing I want to show you is a sample turn in action. So moving into my first player's turn, I'm going to go ahead and carry out the phases of his turn. So first off, I'm going to gain resources from the stars that I have colonies on, and then victory points. So for each star, I'll go ahead and start with this one. I gain resources listed on the top of that star for each colony and the Ark of Salvation that's there. So I'm going to get these resources twice as I have the Ark and 1 colony. So I'm going to receive 2 hydrogen, I'll get 2 water, and 2 life forms. Next, moving over to this other star, I will also get those resources twice. So I'm going to receive 2 more hydrogen, 2 more water, and 2 botanical oxygen. From there, I do not have any Ruler of the Galaxy cards yet or anything else that's going to grant me victory points at this point. So then I'll move into the second phase of my turn, which is activating any Harbingers of the Void that are currently out there, which right now there aren't any out to worry about. So then I'll move into the final phase of my turn, which is my action phase. During this phase, I can carry out any actions that I'm able to, and with some actions, I can only do them once during the turn, and other actions, when I perform them, I can do them any number of times, but once I stop that to perform another action, I cannot come back and do that action again. So first off, I'm going to go ahead and do my move action, where I can move as far as I want to, as long as I have the hydrogen to spend. For each star that I move off of, I have to spend 2 hydrogen, so I'll move from there to the in-between space. And then I'm going to spend 1 hydrogen to move from there onto a new area, which is the Federation, the Central Federation. At this point, I do want to work on a Federation project helping to build a star, so I'm going to spend the resources on there. So I have to spend 4 waters to meet the first requirement on there. So then I'll place one of my colony markers, signifying that I completed that. With that action, I can only do that once per turn, so I cannot continue to work on that star or another star during this same turn, even if I had the resources to spend. From there, then, I can also spend my faction at any point during my turn to either give myself benefits or other players. In this way, even though it is a competitive game, if you're playing the competitive mode, you can help other players out as you are kind of working together to build stars or defeat Harbingers. Even though you're trying to gain victory points on your own, you are going to have to work together a little bit to help each other out potentially. So I could spend this faction, tilting it to the side to gain the 2 artifacts for myself, or giving them to another player if that was more beneficial. So I'll go ahead and gain those myself this round. And then see if I want to do anything else. I could potentially purchase a faction if I had the requirements of it, which each faction is going to list the resource that it needs to purchase it, and I have to have 14 of that resource minus some other effects. So right now I'm way out of the way for that. Now, if I was in the same space as another player, so let's go ahead and say that the red player was in this space, I could initiate a trade action with them where I can trade resources for other resources that they have. Now, the one condition with this is that you must actually trade resources, where each resource you spend, you will gain another resource or give them to that other player, but you can never trade a resource you have nothing in. Or alternatively, I can attack that player trying to gain resources from them for that. In order to carry that out, each player is going to roll a 6-sided die and then add their lowest resource. So right now this player has only a 3s, so they'd add 3 to that, and this player's lowest is a 3 as well. So this player would have a 5 versus that player's 9. So that would determine the winning player. So this player over here won this battle, and at that point then you would compare just the dice values, and the difference in the dice values will be the number of resources that player will steal from the other player. So for example, with this red player, the difference in dice is 4, so that player would gain 4 resources of their choice from the other player, and that player would move the resources down. They can do this in any combination that they want to. From there, I don't really have anything else that I want to do during this round, so my turn is going to come to an end, and it'll move over to the next player, and that player will take their turn. At the end of the round, the player that has the first player marker will pass it to the next player in clockwise order, and then all the players will reset their factions to their top positions so that they can use them during the next round. This is going to continue again until the victory points are met from one of the players to trigger the end of the game. And this is going to depend on the different game modes that you're playing. So I hope you found this video helpful in deciding whether or not you want to back this game on Kickstarter. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comments section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Or swing by the Kickstarter's main page and drop any questions you have there as well. I'm sure the creator would love to hear from you and is more than happy to answer any questions you have. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my videos and leave me feedback on them. I do really appreciate it and I take into account everything you say to make the best possible videos. And until next time, I'll see you later.